There we go. Good afternoon, everyone, including members of the public who are watching the live webcast. My name is Marilee Selesky, and I am the chair of the Design Review Committee. Welcome to this special virtual committee meeting being held on November 21st, 2022. I will now call the meeting to order at 4:33 p.m. Atlantic, and I'll start the meeting off by reading the following land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. As is standard for our virtual meetings, we'll start the meeting off with an AV check. I'll do a roll call if you can just signify your presence with a hello or an aye. Doug Raphael.
Sorry, here. Yes.
Thank you.
It went blank for a second.
Erica Armstrong.
Here.
Jonathan Gauguin Manning.
Here.
Nathan Guy.
Here, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Stanley North.
Here.
Rob LeBlanc.
Yep, here.
And we have regrets from Charlotte Fouquet and Sandrine Monnier. So the first agenda item is the approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes today to approve from both the September 8th and the October 5th meetings. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of September 8th and October 5th, 2022, please?
Motion to approve both sets of minutes from the September 8th and October 5th.
Perfect. That's from Nathan. Thank you. And could I get a seconder, please? Doug? If you could just unmute yourself and just say it for the...
Yeah, sorry about that again. Doug, yeah, I'll second that.
Perfect. Thank you. So we have moved by Nathan and seconded by Raphael. Doug, Raphael. Are there any errors or omissions that anyone would like to note? No? Okay. If there are none, then I will call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any contrary minded say nay for the approval of the two sets of minutes, September 8th and October 5th of 2022.
Aye.
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 Perfect. And the motion is carried. Thank you. Moving into the approval of the order of business. Are there any additions or modifications to today's agenda?
Thank you, Chair. There have been no requests for additions or deletions for today's meeting.
Thank you. Okay, could I get a motion to approve today's agenda then, please?
I'll move to approve it.
Moved by Rob, and a seconder, please.
I can second.
Thank you, Erica. So approval of the agenda named by Rob, moved by Erica. I'll call for the question to approve the agenda as circulated. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and any contrary minded, nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you, everyone. The agenda is carried. Next up, call for declaration of conflict of interests. Are there any committee members that have a conflict to declare today because of an agenda item?
Yes, it's Rob here. I did the wind study, so I'm not sure whether I can vote on the other pieces and just not the wind study, or I'm out completely.
Carl, Annie, anybody want to chime in there? We haven't had this one before.
My apologies, Chair. My understanding, sorry, I thought I just booted myself out of Zoom. I didn't. My understanding is that, again, it's within the members' kind of purview to declare conflict of interest, but if a conflict is declared, it would pertain to the whole motion.
Okay. So, Rob, I think that means that you have to turn your camera off and mute yourself when the item is being discussed. Any committee members who declare the conflict of interest cannot engage in the discussion or vote on the item in question. So you can
Okay,
listen,
so-
you just can't talk.
All good. But when the motion comes up, there's going to be several motions. Acceptance of the wind study is one. Am I allowed to vote on the other ones or just that one?
Right now, it's set up as if it's a single motion, but it has 4 parts to it.
Okay.
If we break it up, we may be able to revisit that, but as it sits right now, it's a single motion.
Sounds good. I think if you've got a quorum anyway, it's not an issue.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Rob, for declaring. Just reading through. So now we can move on to, sorry, are there any other conflicts before we move on? Good. Okay. So we can now move on to item 9.1.2, which is case 24497, substantive site plan approval for 1190 Barrington Street in Halifax. We'll start with a presentation from the HRM staff, and members of the committee will be able to ask questions of clarification on the presentation, and then the applicant will then be available for members to ask questions to directly. Following these questions, I will ask for a mover and a seconder for the motion, and members can then discuss the motion on the floor. So I will ask Daryl Chowdhury to start us off by providing the staff presentation on this item, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Daryl Chowdhury, and I'm a planner with the Urban Enabled Group for planning applications. The decision before the Design Review Committee today is case 24497, which is a site plan approval for 1190 Barrington Street in Halifax. The applicant is Nelson Investments Limited, and the site is 1190 Barrington Street in Halifax. The proposal is for an 8-story, 73-unit mixed-use building. It proposes 2 commercial uses on either side of the center residential entry. There are 87 underground parking spaces and 41 bicycle parking spaces. The building total floor area is 7,833 square meters. These 2 slides are to give you an idea of the context of the site. The slide on the left shows the general site location on Peninsula Halifax. The red circle is at the site, showing its location in the southeast part of the peninsula, across from the Peace and Friendship Park and near the superstore and the rail yards in that part of town. The slide on the right-hand side is showing a more close-up version of the site, and it's showing the existing building. The site itself is fronting on Barrington Street, and it is contained by Tobin Street to the south and South Street to the north, and the proposal will fill the block. The Peace and Friendship Park is across on the opposite side of Barrington Street, as you can see. And on each side of the proposal are 2 existing, the proposal site are 2 existing residential buildings. Under the Downtown Halifax Land Use Bylaw, the zone applied to the site is DH1. The precinct it's located in is Precinct 2, or the Old South Suburb Heritage Conservation District. It is on a pedestrian-oriented commercial street, which is Barrington Street. The Old South Suburb pre-bonus floor area ratio is 2, and the post-bonus floor area ratio for this precinct is 4. The street wall setback in the district is 0 to 1.5 meters. The street wall height is 11 meters. There is a view plane over the site, number 8, which extends from the Halifax Citadel, and it is a prominent civic cultural frontage under the design manual. This is a view looking towards the existing building, looking north up Barrington Street. And the intersection you see is Tobin at Barrington Street. And so that'll be the south corner of the site. And we're looking down towards the old downtown of Halifax. And you can see a bit of the Peace and Friendship Park across the street. This is a view in the opposite direction, taken from the second residential building, and you're looking at the intersection of Barrington and this is Barrington and South. This is the building on the site that will be demolished to make way for the new construction. This is a view looking up South Street. You can see both of the buildings, this residential building and this residential building, from where the 2 previous views were taken. And this is the existing building where the proposal will be located. This is the site plan of the proposed development. And this is, I'll trace the property line. Sorry. Just so that you can see that the building does indeed take up the whole site. This is the main entrance that brings you into the foyer and the vestibule to go to the elevators to access the residential units on the upper floor. On the side along south, we have access points here to the townhouse form units. And over on Tobin, we have also townhouse entrances, and the parking garage entrance is back here at the rear of the building. On either side of the main entrance to the residential is a commercial entrance here and a commercial entrance here. And this commercial entrance on the left-hand side also has an entry on Tobin Street. This is the front elevation, or the Barrington Street elevation. This is the front door that brings you into the vestibule and the lobby where the elevators are located. And this has a protruding canopy over the top for wind protection. The commercial entrance is here to the one is here to the right, and these entrances are inset. And here's the second commercial entrance here to the left of the main entrance. This is where signage will be located on the signage band across the front of the proposal. And this is, of course, the residential units here begin here above the commercial floor. 2 units before it steps into the main tower of the building, and that steps back at the 7th floor to provide an inset floor. And this is the mechanical penthouse at the top of the building. This is the Tobin Street elevation. This is the entry from the commercial space on the left-hand side of the main door. And these are the townhouse form entry doors along the side, and this is the garage door that gives access to the vehicle parking and the bicycle parking. And again, you can see the residential units are delineated above the signage band of the first floor. And this is the narrow end of the mechanical penthouse up here, the plain rectangle. This is the rear elevation of the building. This is this over here would be the garage door off of Tobin Street, and this is the residential, the townhouse form access area over here off of South Street, and these are residential units beginning at the ground floor level and proceeding up to the mechanical penthouse at the top of the building. This is the South Street elevation of the building. This is the if you were looking at the front, this is the right-hand corner of the one of the commercial spaces. The signage band over the top. You'll notice that the street line grade is much higher on this side of the street, going up South Street. This line across here is the line where the doors, the entry points to the townhouse units are found, and there are steps coming down from the grade to this level base on each part for each unit, and this is a set of steps at the end showing you how high the grade has gotten. And again, this is the tower portion set atop the main three-story portion of the building, and the setback residential floor and the mechanical penthouse at the top. The design manual requires that or encourages that the canopies and awnings be located at the street for the enhancement of the public realm and to provide pedestrian comfort. The building shows that the entry points to the commercial spaces are inset, and the main entrance has a canopy that extends out over to provide shelter. But because of the inset, staff saw that the inset was as protective to the pedestrian on the street as a canopy extended out over, and thought we would proceed with the insets. The second variation from the design manual is on the South Street side of the building, where the street line grade creates the recessed conditions and steps, as I said, steps going down from the sidewalk to the level to the ground floor, and the other side, the Tobin Street side, which I don't have an image of, is not recessed like this. It is fairly level and just a few steps up. And this elevation is a few steps down. And the design manual asks that internal small flights of steps be considered for conditions like this. But because of the steepness of the slope and the adjustments that would have to be made to the building to satisfy that condition, we viewed it as satisfactory to continue with this proposal. There are 4 different types of requested variances for this application. The first one is the ground floor height. And this dimension line here, which I've reinforced with some red, just shows the requested height of the variance, that it proceeds from here. This line would be the I'm sorry, I can't read the blurry PDF here, but it's typically 4.5 meters, but it has been reduced in this case because of the steep cross slope, and to keep the building low in profile, in keeping with the heritage aspect of the development's appearance. The second type of variance that was requested is the street wall height. The street wall at this point, at the corner of Tobin and Barrington, is 11 meters. As you proceed back the building along Tobin Street, the 11-meter height would have to step up at this point, and the street wall would continue to the rear corner and then across the rear elevation at that height. The architect wanted to keep the cornice level all the way around the building, and this was something that Heritage was glad to see. So the street wall variance allows the cornice to stay level without stepping up along the length of Tobin Street. When you go to the other side of the building, at Tobin, at South Street and Barrington, the street wall is considerably higher. The 11-meter street wall height is considerably higher than what it is along the front of Barrington Street, and that's because of the increase in height of the street line grade. It puts the street wall height in that condition to avoid having a corner, a tower, or dealing with it with some kind of a physical structure. Again, the variance has been requested so that the cornice can continue along the same height as the front of the building and proceed the same height, staying level all the way back to the rear of the building, and again across the back. And I'll just follow. This is the street line height without the variance, comes over, and then it would have to step up at this point and continue at that height. The third type of request is a street line setback, and I'll just point them. I have put arrows in there so you can see them, but this is one here and here, and we have one here, and I missed one over here, and this part down here, and essentially it's allowing the doorways of the entrances of the townhouse units to be emphasized, and to push them back from the street and give them entrance space that had to be sunken in this part. And then same setback was deemed important on this side to make both elevations look similar. The fourth type of variance is the street wall step back, and you can see one here and here, and this was requested in order to give a rational shape to the building, and to give give a little extra floor space, a little bit more room for the development of the townhouses. And staff is recommending approval of these variances. All of these are permitted under the design manual. Subsection 3.6.15 allows for variances to the minimum floor-to-floor height for the ground floor to accommodate steep streetline slopes across the property, as long as it doesn't result in sunken ground floor conditions. And it does not in this case. All the floor is one level floor across the site, so that everything is at the same elevation and there is no sunken ground floor. Subsection 3.6.3 of the manual allows for variance to the street wall height requirements, as long as it's in the spirit of the design manual and maintains the street wall height consistent at all elevations and avoids stepping of the street wall. Subsection 3.6.1 of the manual allows for variances to the street wall setbacks if they are consistent with the objectives of the manual and the guidelines by breaking up the massing and providing transition to the existing buildings in the surrounding area. Subsection 3.6.5 of the design manual allows for the consideration of the variance of upper story street wall stepbacks and is consistent with the objectives and guidelines of the manual, as it enables the tower to maintain a consistent and rational shape and provides more livable townhouse units. In this application, there is a request for a post-bonus floor area ratio public benefit. The land use bylaw specifies a maximum pre-bonus FAR of 2 and a maximum post-bonus FAR of 4. The maximum pre-bonus FAR is exceeded in this request, and the applicant is requesting to provide a public benefit of cash in lieu. Cash in lieu is offered in this case because it is actually the requirement under the Old South Suburb Heritage Conservation District. So there was no alternative other than the cash in lieu. And the Design Review Committee's role here is to recommend to the development officer if the public benefit should be accepted by the municipality. The wind study was carried out in fulfillment of the application criteria. The building will create additional wind shadows that will lessen the windy conditions around the building, but it will likely increase the snow loads and drifting in the Peace and Friendship Park, but it will also create slightly less windy conditions at the park. The models show limited changes in the wind speed, except for the north winds, where the speeds will slightly increase on Barrington downwind of the new building. But mostly this building, as I said in the first part, will cause additional wind shadows, which are less windy, which bring with them less windy conditions and surrounding the development to improve the human thermal comfort from wind gusts. It was also found that the step back at the 3rd and 4th stories surrounding the front of the building will reduce the downdrafts on the surrounding neighborhood and streets, and the extended patios will create surface friction that will help break up the wind speeds from the northwest direction, which is the prevailing winter condition. So in summary, the expected level of comfort will increase for activities such as sitting and walking in the park due to lessened wind activity, even though there will be possibly more snow. The articulation of the building further reduces the wind speeds at and near the street, that combined with the setback of the covered main entry canopy on Barrington Street will reduce downdrafts and increase the entrance, downdrafts at the entrance of the building, and this will make standing and walking much more comfortable for humans. Staff recommend that the Design Review Committee approve the qualitative elements of the substantive site plan approval application for an 8-story mixed-use building at 1190 Barrington Street, Halifax, as shown in attachment A. Approve the 4 variances to the land use bylaw requirements regarding land uses at grade, street line setback, minimum street wall height, and street wall step backs as contained in attachment A. Accept the findings of the qualitative wind impact assessment as contained in attachment B, and to recommend that the development officer accept the cash in lieu contribution required by section 12, subsection 6.1 of the land use bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Appreciate the presentation. I'll now go through the speakers list for members to ask questions of clarification. We'll start with Erica.
No questions from me, thanks.
Thank you, Erica. Jonathan, how about you?
Yeah, a couple questions. On the north elevation, how is that not considered a sunken condition where the 3 town units on that side are now below grade? And one of them, the window is just barely above the sidewalk level. I don't quite understand how that doesn't kind of flag out as being perhaps a little problematic. I only bring that up because when we look at the inside plan too, I know this isn't code compliance or anything on this end, but paired with a very long dead end corridor, I think there might be down the line some need to resolve some layout issues internally, which may bring some issues externally. So it seems like we've got a sunken condition on that side of the building that kind of really starts to shrink all the requirements when you look at the upper level of it. And it would kind of seem that, normally we'd want the building to step a bit like they do on the opposite corner of the building.
Madam Chair, through you to the member, I understand what you mean by a sunken condition, but what I think the design manual is talking about is that the actual floor itself doesn't have a sunken condition, so that when you step through the door, pardon me, when you step through the door, you're not going down a step when you enter the commercial area, or if you're coming in the townhouse form areas, when you're coming in level off of from the exterior. You're not coming in and stepping down, so that it's level, and it is all one elevation slab on the bottom floor, and the outside space off of South Street is level with the slight, as I understand the drawings, it's a slight step up to the townhouse form units to get in, but nowhere is there sunken condition within the internal floor plan.
Yeah, I think the South Street, I have no issue with. Neither the, sorry, I'm trying to click through the drawings to give them the right elevations. And the main one on Barrington, the east, is quite all right. It's the north one that's quite aggressive on its slope to sidewalk to the ground floor. Other than that, I don't really have any questions.
Okay. We will have an opportunity to hear from the applicants too, so maybe we can touch on some of your comments and questions, Jonathan, then. Moving to the next committee member, Nathan, any questions from you?
No questions for me, Madam Chair. Thanks, Daryl, for our excellent presentation.
Stanley.
No questions from me, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Great. And next, Doug.
No questions for me, Madam Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. So there is no applicant presentation for this item. However, on behalf of the applicant, we have Ron Smith and not Leah Gillis and Pam. Sorry, Pam, I don't know your last name, who are now available to answer questions for clarification. Just as we did previously, we will go through the speakers list for questions. Jonathan, you're up first.
That's me. I guess the question will be paired kind of with the code review, just as I'm part of the architecture part of this committee, and have familiarity with some of the components. Internally, there seems to be on the ground floor at least some very long dead-end corridors, which then pair up to give to the townhouses on the north elevation. And the north elevation, you know, the street is steeper than the other side, but I find the townhouses there to be quite sunken compared to the street. I guess the question is there any thought to how that could perhaps be changed up? I know that the current design is a step. You go from this lower area and they're 2-story, but has there been any look at perhaps extending the staircase more to the higher story and then having, you know, a well window instead, and the lower story be the one that is not accessed from the street? Does that make sense? I hope.
Ron, I'll put that question to you.
Can you hear me?
We can, yes. Thank you, Ron.
Very good. Okay. I was just looking at the building, and I know, yeah, I was quite happy with just about everything except for the last 2 bays going up South Street and on Tobin, and to ask some consideration on what looks like the most sunken area is the last 22 feet at the, let's call it the end of the north side of the elevation. There is no townhouse or lower townhouse area at that. It's actually at the second floor. There's actually a 2-bedroom apartment. So the exit stair does exit out at that level. So yeah, it is definitely a compromise, but looking at the overall continuity of our elevations all the way around from Tobin across Barrington, and then having some compromises just even for the commercial at the corner of South Street and Barrington Street. I guess when we looked at this, it's just we had to compromise in some areas. There is a rather deep entry yard to some of these townhouses. That was one of the compromises that we had to deal with, is not bringing them straight out to the street, but setting them back as they should, for that, give them some entry area, but also to sort of remediate the issue of going from a high point on the sidewalk and then going down into your entryway. So to some people, it's much the same way as you would have some of the old New York and Montreal streetscapes. You do have these sunken entry areas. Some people really may like that much better than basically straight off the street. It gives you a little bit more privacy. So I guess really we'll see when we get some tenants in there, but realistically, I'm not unhappy about that compromise at the upper end. It really affects probably 2 townhouses or 2 units at the very, very top. So the other side in Tobin, it's obviously the drive-in for the underground parking. So, and Tobin Street is relatively level considering the upper grades that we have to deal with on South Street. So I'm not overly unhappy with the result, but the option would have been basically sort of raising up the cornice levels, and then that really changes all of the floor plans to step up as you go, and that really does have an effect as you get to the rear of the building. So it's an architectural compromise, and I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, I think part of my concern is on the pedestrian to building interaction on that side, but
Yeah. But when I do look at the building now, one of the things that I would have liked to have seen, Daryl, we did a nice color elevation for the building. So there's another element there that's sort of missing, is that reinforcement of 3 levels of streetscape versus what we have is, at the sort of glazy, or the upper section of the building is really a background rather than foreground. So realistically, we did simplify the building from what it was previously, but still, with all of the ins and outs and the articulation that we did on the street, I think this one certainly will have some presence, and I think it's more likely the townhouses really will work on here, as well as a very small amount of commercial area that we were putting in on the front. But again, we had a lot of grade and entry. I hate to say compromise, but basically challenges. And so even a building that looks like it could be built over a flat landscape, rather than jog the building arbitrarily, it really is difficult to do a very symmetrical building, meet with the heritage requirements that we were given, and to create a building that's probably more in keeping to the 19th century facade, at least at the street level, which in fact, in many cases, they kind of ignored the grades and really reinforced the horizontality of the building at that level. So you get that reinforcement of the three stories. So I don't really have much at this point in time. It's sort of beyond design, I guess, but and looking at, there are things that we could have done, but realistically, to take a whole design and it's like, the tail wagging the dog. You have areas that work extremely well. You don't want to go back into areas that are not working so well and then push the design so that generally you make much larger compromises for the rest of the building. So I think all in all, Leah Gillis was my assistant on this one, and Shakut in my office, and I think they've made some really good decisions. And you really have to weigh that on just about every design, every building. So,
Jonathan, anything further from you?
No, thank you.
Nathan, any questions?
No, thank you. No questions from you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Stanley, any questions from you?
No question for me, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug?
No questions, Madam Chair. Thanks.
And Erica, any questions?
No questions for me, thanks.
Okay. I just had one question, Ron. The area on the South Street elevation that Jonathan was talking about that is sunken down, is there, I would assume there's intended to be some sort of drainage underneath that, something?
Oh, yeah, there's both landscape architect and the civil engineer. We've certainly looked at, it's always an issue that does come up, especially initially in any project. So there is more than adequate drainage in that area. Obviously there'd be ice and snow. You're going to have to do some maintenance, but realistically, we do have provision for draining all the way along that recessed area. It's not just one drain. So,
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a technical solution,
Right.
but it doesn't basically ignore the fact that you do have to do some shoveling. You do have to do some ice clearing, and it's always an issue. So we also have
Understood.
a large podium, and we'll have to watch what happens on the interior podium as well. So, those are been design decisions amongst all of the consultants. So yeah, we're quite aware of that.
Okay, no, and understand that there's always building maintenance that's required. My concern was more with some of the
But we
weather
haven't.
events that we've been experiencing and seeing water coming down streets, specifically the South Street, that has quite a hill that if I was a tenant or a homeowner, I don't know if I'd be a little nervous maybe with the water. As long as there's drainage there, then maybe it'll be okay. Okay. So if there are no further questions from the committee, I'll ask for the staff recommendation to be put on the floor for debate. And maybe we can get that put in the chat so that whomever moves it can read it out. There it is. Thank you, Annie. So this will need a mover and a seconder. And I will ask whoever moves that they read the motion as it is posted in the chat.
I can propose the motion. That's okay.
Thank you, Nathan.
A motion that the design review committee approve the qualitative elements of the substantive site plan approval application for an 8-story mixed-use building at 1190 Barrington Street, Halifax, as shown in attachment A, and approve number 2, approve the variances to the land use bylaw requirements regarding land uses at grade, street line setback, minimum street wall height, and street wall step backs as contained in attachment A, except the findings of the qualitative wind impact assessment as contained in attachment B. And number 4, recommend that the development officer accept the cash in lieu contribution required by section 12, 6.1 of the land use bylaw.
Thank you, Nathan. Could I get a seconder as well?
I second that motion.
Thank you, Stanley. So we'll start do around the list again to see if there are any questions or discussions about the motion. We'll start with the mover, which is Nathan, and then we can proceed through the speakers list. Any questions, comments regarding the motion, Nathan?
Just a general comment. It just seemed like there was a lot of things that they had to try to accommodate here, and it does seem that well. And like you said, there's some trade-offs with some certain things, but you always sometimes end up you fix one problem but create a couple more. It just seemed that they took the right approach on this one. So I feel comfortable with what they're proposing.
Okay, thank you. Stanley, any comments, questions from you?
No additional comments or questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug.
Just a comment to the architect that it's great to see the townhouse concept continuing. It seems to be a format in Halifax and going in the right direction. It's nice to see them putting it in place continuously.
Great, thank you. Erica, any comments, questions?
Just a comment. I kind of like, the sunken in townhouse look. So I am excited to see how that particular element comes in on this building to add some visual variety.
Great, thank you. And finally, Jonathan, any comments or questions?
No additional comments. Thanks.
Okay. So we will call for the question to be held. And all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any contrary minded say nay. That the motion be passed as noted in the chat and moved by Nathan, seconded. Yeah, so all those in favor signify by saying aye, and any contraries by nay.
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion has carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Daryl, and our participants that have since left the call. Thank you. I will ask for a motion to adjourn at 5:22 p.m.
Marilee, is it okay if I say something quick before?
Sure.
Oh, I think this is my last meeting. I've done my 2 terms and I don't think we'll have another one. Oh, Annie, should I not be talking?
No, sorry. Sorry. Just quickly, I was going to say all members who are currently members, even though your terms may be up on November 22nd, you continue to be members until new members are appointed. So there may potentially be, a meeting in December or a meeting in the new year before the appointments are ratified by council. So until that point in time, you're still members. I promise to be in touch with everybody to let all members whose terms are expiring to know when the appointments have been made.
Cool. So maybe or maybe not, I'm hanging on, but I have a feeling this will be the last meeting given the smaller mandate we have now. But Carl, we added that to our agenda, new stuff coming down the pipe, and I don't think you said anything but I wanted to say thanks to Annie, previously Andrea, and Carl, and all the other HRM staff who helped me through during my term as chair. And I learned a lot as a member at large about design in the city. And I think it's cool to see some of the buildings that were approved when I was on the committee 4 years ago, their elements being added or built now. So I just wanted to say thanks.
That's great. Thank you, Erica. And thank you for your participation. I learned from you, so the system's working so far.
Good.
All right. So yeah, if we could just get a motion to adjourn and then everybody can go grab dinner.
I motion to adjourn.
Perfect. Thank you, Stanley. All right. And so we are adjourned at 5:24 p.m. on November